So in the back half of this season, if TCU is going to change things up a little bit, who are some players that you want to see on the field moving forward? We'll talk about that next here on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That's right, Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can also find us on your favorite podcast platform. Thanks for rocking with me during a bye week. I'm going to transition a little bit today. We're still going to talk football. And, listen, I'm going to be candid and honest about the Sonny Dykes hot seat situation for the rest of the season. I do think it's worth noting, though, that there's still games to be played. I'm not sure if and when they'll make a move mid-season. I feel like the way college football works now, with the early signing period, you're kind of behind the eight ball if you don't make a move in the middle of the year, but I don't feel like it has to be this week. Obviously, it's not going to happen now. It's not going to happen after the Utah game. I think once we get past Tech, that'll be 75% of the way through the season. That'll give us a better sample size of where they're at, and they could let it play out for the rest of the year because, it's fair to allow him to see what he can do with this roster and how it's constructed currently. But I was thinking today, I had Matt Jennings on yesterday, and if you want to check that out, you can see it on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. And we talked for about 40 minutes, and it was a lot about Sonny's job status, where this team is at, where the program is moving, which right now would seem to be in the wrong direction. And one thing that he brought up is what exactly is the coaching staff trying to sell the players and the fans on for the rest of the year, because you've got a pretty veteran-laden team right now that's struggling to make plays, that's dealing with some mental mistakes, that's having issues in all three phases. And one thing that he said was, if you want to inject more hope into this team, into the fan base as a whole, one way to do that is to go to a youth movement. Now, last season, I had a similar thought when things started to go downhill. And it was really kickstarted by the Chandler Morris injury and then Josh Hoover taking over, because it seemed like the perfect time with a backup QB at the time in there to start playing with the personnel groupings and see what type of young guys you had there in the fold. And one name that got brought up constantly was Cordell Russell. That never really materialized. I don't know behind the scenes the reasons for that, but he transferred in the offseason. So in segment one today, I'm going to cover 3 or 4 players that I would like to see get more snaps throughout the last 6 games of the regular season. And I'd love for you to chime in here on YouTube in the comment section, or you can tweet at me at SimcockSteven. That's always a good way to get a hold of me as well. And first off, I'm going to go at receiver. And that might surprise you because, honestly, that's been the room that's had the most success so far this year. Their veteran guys have had productive seasons. Now, they're coming off a rough game against Houston. Eric McAllister, who was very involved the prior 2 weeks before that game on Friday night, didn't get any targets, which was pretty dumbfounding given just how much of a physical specimen he's been lately and the matchup problem that he creates with the size and his ability. Savion Williams is someone who can go up and make plays. It's been inconsistent. Jack Besh has turned into one of the best receivers in the country. And J.P. Richardson is solid, does his job. Very reliable pass catcher over the middle. The fumbles have been an issue this year, but overall playing at a high level, right? That being said, Matt mentioned Jakyle Baker, the freshman from Brownsboro, and I wouldn't mind seeing him out there either, but the guy that I'm curious about is Braylon James. And Braylon James' story, he transferred to TCU in the offseason. He's from Round Rock Stony Point. He's a teammate of Cam Cook. He spent his freshman year at Notre Dame, didn't really see the field at all. 6'2", 190 pounds. Gabe Brooks from his high school scouting report, this is courtesy of 247 Sports. Big framed outside receiver with clear physical tools and athleticism, approaching a legit 6'2" frame with big reach and corresponding catch radius. Assembled one of the best verified testing ledgers in the country in the spring of 2022. He was a multi-sport athlete in high school, also excelled in basketball. Had a great feel for winning in traffic and adjusting in midair, great sense of timing, elevates with large reach to expand catch radius, matchup nightmare for smaller defensive backs, and a dangerous red zone option. So they've been good at wide receiver. But that being said, I would love to see Braylon get some more snaps because moving forward, he's going to be one of those guys that you hope is in the wide receiver rotation in the next couple of years. And one aspect of this offense that's been missing really the last 2 years, they've kind of made up for it this year with some good yak yardage, like yards after the catch, throwing underneath or throwing some intermediate balls, and guys just breaking tackles and making plays. But that vertical passing game has been pretty non-existent. Now, part of that is you've had a turnstile on the O-line at times, and so it's hard to run long developing routes. It's difficult to indulge in those types of plays when you don't feel like you can block it up and protect. But I would be all for giving Braylon James some chance to go win some 50-50 balls. You know, that's what Savion does really well. We know who Savion is. I want to see him on the field. I want to see Jack Besh on the field. I would love to see, Eric McAllister on the field. I think Dalen Wright, if he's healthy, is a guy that can be helpful. But when we're talking about long-term future, Braylon James is a guy that I think you can give him some snaps. You can give him some ability to go out and make some plays and just get integrated in the offense. Because it's one thing to go through the practice reps. I mean, that's important. But it's totally different when you're going at game speed against teams that are adjusting to what you're doing and you're having to be on the same page with your QB in some of these run-pass option concepts and these route option concepts and everything that goes with that. So Braylon James is one of those players I don't want to see more of. Secondly, Jeremy Payne. He got his first start against Houston. I think we're trending that way anyway, but he runs the ball effectively. One thing that I was super impressed with, and I talked about this after the Kansas game, he's a good blocker in space, which for young running backs is not typically what you see. He had a great pancake block on a Haas Haney run on 4th and 1 or 4th and 2 in the first quarter of that KU game where he got out on the edge and just flattened somebody. Also had he was the lead blocker of the play with J.P. Richardson, and they run this play a few times. They like it. They put like trips to the right, and then they'll motion JP to the other side of the formation and clear that space out. And it's just a little swing pass to him. And he's good at finding, room to run and finding the first down marker. And Payne engaged with his defensive back and had him locked up and didn't allow him to, get off that block and make a play. And it was cool to see. And so I just want to see him get involved more in the offense, get more carries. I feel like you can split that time with him and Cam Cook pretty evenly. And, well, I guess I shouldn't say we're past the point where we're going to develop any sort of run game because you can still work on it. But it's pretty clear that this team's identity is going to be throwing the football. He seems well-rounded in the fact that he can catch the ball and make plays out of the backfield in that regard too. But having another run threat, having a change of pace back is something that's really been sorely missing all season. One thing that's kind of gotten lost in all this, I don't know what happened to Trey Sanders. I thought he looked good in limited action in that Stanford game. And then it was like, just haven't seen him since. And I know he worked pretty hard this offseason to get to a place where they felt like he was more explosive and more ready to play. It hasn't translated. Dominic Johnson has gotten a lot of those snaps. But I'm all in on the skill position-wise, Jeremy Payne and Braylon James. Switching over the defense, another guy who's starting to get more run, but I'd like to see him get even more time on the field is Marcus Deal. And I just think he's got that ability at that defensive tackle position to move the line of scrimmage, get off his blocks, be disruptive. And more than anything, O-line and D-line play is so much about repetition and just getting used to the physicality of the next level, right? Like it's a step up from what you saw in high school. You'll see guys that are dominant at this level too, but it's more difficult than just kind of ragdolling dudes that you overpower physically like you did in high school football. And so I just want to see how Marcus holds up and stands up against some good offensive lines like Utah, like Arizona later on in the schedule, Oklahoma State's had issues there, but I think they've been pretty formidable in the past, and they have some talent. So getting him opportunities against those types of teams and those types of fronts will be really beneficial for him moving forward. Also defensively, I don't know how much they'll give these guys opportunities, but Javon McIver's hurt at corner. JT Broughton's had some struggles. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing some dudes like Julian Knox and Vondre McGee. Now, the coaching staff has to decide if those guys are ready. Corner is one of the toughest positions to play in football, man. It really is. I mean, I don't envy guys who are isolated on an island with wide receivers. You don't know where the play is going. Even if you turn your hips and run with somebody, you have to get your head around, track the ball, and maintain your speed well enough that you're step for step with a wide receiver. It's a tough job. And it's another one of those spots on the team and on the field where it's all about reps. It's all about getting that experience so that it becomes more second nature, more muscle memory for you against some good receivers in the Big 12. Plus, I just think giving those vets some more snaps where they're fresh could be beneficial moving forward too. And finally, this is not an indictment on Josh Hoover at all. I love Josh Hoover. I think he's been good this year. Friday was a mess for the whole team, him included. Actually, I got a few more. I think I said 3. I'm going to end up with like 6. But Haas Haney, it's the perfect time to get him more opportunities in the run game. And when you're able to run the ball with your quarterback, it evens up the math more in the run game. So you're spreading teams out. The hope is that you get a light box, but even so, you're always going to be outnumbered. You're always going to have one extra defender that you can't block up because of the quarterback. So giving Haas more chances to get out there and use his athleticism also helps your team and forces the defense to make some decisions. And then I'd just like to see him throw the ball a few times. I mean, I think we're past a point where you worry about redshirting. Coaching staff could disagree about that, but that's just where I'm at right now here in the middle of the season. And from an edge rusher standpoint or a stud linebacker, I think Cooper McDonald and Devin Deal have been solid. I like what they brought to the table. I would like to see more Marcel Brooks and Jonathan Bax just to keep those guys fresh, right? Like I think part of it's tough because if this defense continues to struggle against the run, then teams are just going to keep running it on them. And it makes rushing the passer so much more difficult because you can't really pin your ears back and come at people if you're constantly on your heels having to worry about the run game. So that's going to be part of it. But, in that Stanford game, they were able to force so many obvious passing situations. And because of that, they got speed and athleticism on the field, and that was super disruptive. And it might just be as simple as that with Stanford. But I would like to see Andy Avalos get back to that and at least show some proof of concept and, hey, this is what we want to do. Like maybe we don't fully have everybody in place to do it at a high level yet, but this is what the vision is for this defense. And in an ideal world, what we'll be doing moving forward. When we come back, I'll talk about a new idea that was reported on by Ross Dellinger from Yahoo Sports about the future of college football and how important it is for TCU to get off the mat and improve. Here on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. Shout out to our friends at FanDuel. They've been holding us down for a long time. FanDuel.com or the FanDuel app. One $5 bet gets you $200 in bonus bets. You can bet on the NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball. As I'm recording this, Padres up 4-1 on the Dodgers. The Los Angeles Dodgers. I'd be sick if I'm a Dodgers fan. So much talent each and every year. Just feels like they come up short. Series isn't over. This game isn't even over. But it's just something I noticed right now. I love playoff baseball, man. I wish the Rangers were involved. You can bet on playoff baseball at FanDuel. One $5 bet gets you $200 in bonus bets. That's a great return on your investment. FanDuel, official betting partner of Major League Baseball, also a proud sponsor of the Locked On Network. On tomorrow's show, we're going to go off. We'll deviate a little bit from what we've been doing for the past 6 weeks. We've been talking a lot of football, and I thought, okay, bye week, we'll hit on all the other sports. So I'm going to have Ray Cartwright on, and he'll discuss soccer and volleyball. Those two teams are ranked right now and playing at a high level in Big 12 play. And then I'll also get into hoops a little bit. TCU baseball has their fall scrimmage going on. There's a lot of other sports preparing for their seasons. And so with football having no game Saturday, I thought it was a good opportunity to catch up on some of the news and notes there as well. So that'll be tomorrow's show. I saw this on Tuesday morning from Ross Dellinger. So the SEC and the Big Ten are meeting on Wednesday and Thursday, the leaders of those conferences. And they're discussing the future of the sport. The SEC and the Big Ten have proposed a new idea. Shockingly, they want more of the playoff pie. So they're proposing an idea where each league gets 4 automatic playoff bids. So even when it expands to 14, I think eventually it expands to 16 at some point, they'll still be locking up at least half those bids if it goes through. Once again, trying to throw their weight around and just say, hey, you're in for the ride with us and we're going to do everything we want to do. But I saw Ross throw out this interesting idea. I mean, he wasn't throwing it out. He's reporting on something that is real. It's called Project Rudy. It's a group of investors and ex-Disney executives who are trying to come up with a detailed format for a college football super league. But this super league would involve 70 teams and would involve all the Power 4 conferences, which is a big deal because the super leagues that we've heard of in the past were much more based in, okay, SEC, Big Ten. Before we break off, they'll add a few more teams, they'll add a few more schools, get to 18 or 20 teams apiece, and then that'll be your super league, and then everybody else will be below that. There's a lot of different ideas within this larger idea. But one thing that they want to do is eliminate FCS games and group of 5 games. So you would just play teams within your super league. And TCU, from a scheduling standpoint, is honestly kind of close to that. I mean, you'd eliminate the FCS game, and this year they didn't end up having a group of 5 game on the schedule because SMU was in the ACC. Now, I don't know what Jeremiah Denai's plan moving forward after the Iron Skillet gets canceled is going to be, but that's one aspect of it. You consolidate the media rights of the 70 schools into one agreement instead of different packages for each conference, which should help with revenue sharing. And there would be different tiers. Tier 1, the top 16 schools would earn $130 million in year 4 and escalating to $250 million in year 12. These are all hypothetical numbers. Tier 2 would earn slightly less than that. Tier 3, and that would be 22 schools. Tier 3 would be 32 schools, and they would get less than Tier 1 and Tier 2. And it would be similar right now to the difference between the ACC and the Big 12 and the Big 10 and the SEC. So it's an intriguing idea. There would also be regulation within that, so you could move up and down tiers depending on how your team performed, which is an intriguing idea as well. My main takeaway from this, and a couple of you have said this over the last few days, as we've been kind of lamenting and talking about the state of this program and where they're at right now. This is a really critical time for TCU. There's a lot of things working in TCU's favor when we talk about realignment and the haves and the have-nots in college sports and where it's all moving. Great location, facilities that are top-notch, an alumni base that is small but has shown that they're committed to, and a university that's shown that they're committed to being at the table with big-time college athletics. Like they're putting their money where their mouth is with it, right? They're willing to invest. But if you can't fix the on-the-field product, the struggle TCU is going to have is the brand itself is not big enough to overcome that. So there's some schools, like Notre Dame, is going to be involved in this. Notre Dame could go 2-10 over the next 5 years. They would still be involved in this. That's not going to happen, but you know what I mean. I'm just throwing out a hypothetical here. Texas was kind of, not kind of, they were mediocre for a long time. They still got an SEC invite because it's such a big brand. TCU is not in that place. So it's imperative that they figure out how to work this, how to get this back to where it needs to be so that they can stay in the conversation moving forward in college sports. And I don't know if this is going to get approved. I mean, there's a lot of hurdles within what they're asking about and what they're saying could be possible. But it does feel like the movers and shakers in this sport are wanting to get to a place where they're separate from the NCAA and totally removed from the old model. And so TCU has to be on top of their game so that when push comes to shove, they're involved in these negotiations and these talks when it comes down to it. We'll get some of your reactions to the last few shows next. Locked on Horned Frogs, your team every day. Game Time. If you need tickets, it's not just sporting events, even though that's a great thing to buy on the Game Time app. Also comedy shows, theater productions, whatever it is that you love, Game Time will make it easy for you. Download the Game Time app today. Use Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. I told you before, there's some fees, but they don't hide the fees. They tell you what they are up front, so you don't go to checkout and suddenly say, wait, why am I spending $30 more than I expected? Game Time makes it simple for you. A couple clicks of a button, and the tickets will go right to your phone. So you don't have to wonder, oh, was it in my email? Do I have to download another app to get the tickets and scan them? No, they're right there. They're on your phone, so you can just get it. It's on the app. Same app you buy them in is the app the tickets are in, and you can get them scanned from there. Download the Game Time app today. Again, that promo code is Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. So, yes, the last two shows, I spent a lot of time talking about Sonny Dykes and where they are. Brian Capers says, I like Dykes as a person. He's a great ambassador for TCU. Hope he turns the team around. I just don't understand the disconnect and all the unpreparedness to play the games. I think that's where a lot of us are at. I mean, yeah, Sonny seems like a great dude. I want him to figure this out. I don't think he's suddenly forgotten how to coach. Now, many people would say the product they're putting on the field right now is a lot closer to what he's done throughout his whole career than what they did in 2022. But it doesn't seem like he knows either, and that's the big problem. It's one thing if we're like, well, I don't think he can do this. I mean, based on what he said after that Houston game, I think he's kind of grasping at straws as well as to how to fix this problem, and that's a big issue. Vince Pryor says there's a fourth type of person, the TCU Letterman or any other athlete that has experienced both great coaching and a coach in over their head. He talked about Coach Wacker. From the first practice, the postseason interview was always coaching and motivating. He also mentioned Pat Sullivan, who he compared Sonny to. For some reason, Sonny and Pat just moved from inside and outside and thought it was coaching. A great motivational speech never starts with I. Most of them start with we. Sonny's been saying, I don't know, since the near failure that was the walk-off field goal against Baylor, and that's when I knew we were in trouble. Yeah, so what Vince is referring to is I said there's typically a progression with coaches on the hot seat. There's fans that, I mean, no matter how well things are going, there's always people that are like, I don't know if this guy's the dude. When things start turning downhill, everybody kind of gets in lockstep with that idea. There's like opinion people who are not interacting and interviewing the coaches on a daily basis, weekly basis, that are like, okay, something has to change. And then there's like beat writers, people that are closer to the team. When they start talking about the potential of a move being made, then you know it's serious. But yeah, TCU Letterman are an important part of this equation. And I know there are guys that, I mean, they put their bodies on the line for this program, for the school. They've seen what Gary built over the years, and they're unhappy with what's happening. And I totally get it. I mean, I can't totally relate to that because I didn't play, but as an alum who experienced some high highs when I was a student, yeah, it stinks when the team's bad. Like, we all want them to be good. We want them to be successful. And if you can't figure it out, then obviously he'll be in trouble. But we'll see how that plays out over the coming weeks as they get ready for this game against Utah. We'll be back again tomorrow. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. We're free and available wherever it is you get your podcast.